It is July 14th at 8:30, and I'd like to call this meeting to order at this time. I'd like to welcome everyone, and would you please stand for the pledge? Salute. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You have before you a recommended agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
No recommended changes.
Hearing no changes, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. We have a motion from Tom and a second from Kristen. All in favor? Unanimous. Motion passes. At this time, Larry Hamill will open the public hearing. Oh, do we need a motion to open the public hearing? Okay. We have a motion from Kristen, a second. Second. We have a second from Darla. All in favor? Unanimous. The public hearing is now open. Larry Hamill will be giving us a presentation on the budget.
I'll start.
I'm sorry.
No. No, good morning, everybody. I just wanted to quickly say how much I appreciate the job Larry has done putting this budget proposal together with all of our department heads. As you know, Larry is completing his first year as our Chief Financial Officer and has done a tremendous job working with all our department heads in these unprecedented times. I'm really proud of the budget proposal that we're presenting this morning. I'm going to turn it over to Larry, let him go through step by step.
Thank you, sir. So this morning, we're going to talk about the initial budget presentation. Then we talk about the next steps after that. So we just want to present some budget highlights to you. Based on their last QBE form we got for the current fiscal year, they're showing that our number of students we should have will be about 50,784. That is what they're basing the QB numbers on. The current budget does not include either a COLA or step increase. And the projected expenditure growth in the budget are mostly for growth positions at the school level or to support the school level. Overall revenue has been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic effect on state and local revenue sources. For this year, the tax digest grew, but not at the rate we were used to, only at 4.42%. I'm going to take this off. It's just kind of hard to talk with it. Due to the reduced revenue projections at the state level, about $2.2 million, Forsyth County School District received the austerity cut of about $25 million. We are still proposing the millage rate to stay at 17.3 mils. The way the budget is projected with the decreases both in reduced calendar days as well as the use of fund balance, we're projecting an ending fund balance for next year of 12.7%. Currently, based on 2019 data from the Georgia Department of Education, Forsyth County is still one of the lowest cost school systems of the 12 largest in the state at $9,208.71. And for the 5th year in a row, we still contain our 5-star efficiency rating, the only school system to do that. The next is the general fund overview. As you can see, we have the fiscal year 21 budget compared to the 20 budget. You can see that overall we had a decrease in total revenue of about 2.4% or $11.5 million. And we had an increase overall of the expenditures of about 1.1 of about $5.7 million. That takes consideration that those expenditures for 21 do have reduced expenditures in there of about $9 to $10 million for reduced calendar days. We're projecting our beginning fund balance at the beginning of the year was going to be 64.8. We're projecting right now, based on data, that we will end the year with about $10.5 million more, either in more revenue or less expenses. This also takes consideration the CARE Act money that we went ahead and applied for and are going to we had downloaded prior to June 30th. That means we'll end the year with an estimated fund balance of about 75.4 million. We're predicting to use about 13.7 fund balance, giving us a year-end fund balance for next year of about 61.6, 12.7% fund balance. The next page, expenditures by function. As you can see, 21 is at the very bottom, following very closely to 20, where operating expenses makes up about 10.7 versus 89.23 for salaries. Going across from left to right, you can see the 21 salary and benefits as well as operating versus the total 20 budget. And you can see the decreases or increases going across by function level. One thing I do want to point out to you that are two new things happening this year that haven't happened in the past is under transfers out. We have about $1.6 million in there that we're transferring out. And the large part of that money is about 1.4 is going to school nutrition. Later on in this presentation, you'll see that school nutrition had, it's going to end the year with a negative fund balance of about $400,000. So they lost about $2.8 million compared to what their fund balance was at the beginning of the school year. The other $218,000 is money being transferred to RTC program. We're keeping those two separate for fund accounting purposes. Then the last line, you'll see debt service. As you can see, last year we had about $2.3 million in there for debt service. So when I was reviewing the accounting records here, we noticed that we had some leftover funds in the alliance bond issues that we had, the revenue bonds. And after talking to the bond attorney, he said, because the way the language is written, we can use the remaining funds to make the actual payments against those revenue bonds for the Alliance Academy going forward. So that's what we're going to do this year, using those remaining funds. The next is a pie chart broken out by the different areas. As you can see, instructionals once again makes up almost about 2/3 of your entire budget, followed closely by school admin, maintenance, transportation, and other departments. Next, we're kind of giving you an idea of what the pie chart looks like for salaries versus operations. Yes, ma'am. Next, we're showing you a breakdown of the salary and benefit changes. I think this tells a very good story. As you can see, we still are adding 167 positions to the schools and the school non-school based supporting jobs as well, like bus drivers, maintenance, coordinators, school safety admin support. That cost there alone is going to be about 12.5. And as you can see, we reduced days that we project is about 9.4. What you don't see though is the reduced calendar days for that 12.5. That number is about 400,000 higher there. So if you took that 400,000 added to the 9.4, you're close to $10 million. But the reduced calendar days for those positions are included on top.
We are opening the school in Coolsville Elementary School.
Correct. Next, we see the general fund revenues broken down by categories. You got your local revenue categories and you got your state and federal categories. A couple things to notice. You see the QBE is down by $23.2 million. And you'll notice that interest income is dropped down almost nothing. We're down to $180,000 compared to what we had in the past. The other big thing to notice is the ad valorem tax in the prior years. That numbers have been anywhere from $16 to $19 million increases in the past. As you can see, the 4.42 didn't help us with the process we have this year. And down at the bottom of the calculations, both for the tax revenue projections as well as the QB formula. Now, if you look at the revenue comparison, believe it or not, local is higher than it is state this year, just because of the QE drop. Next, we have a history of the millage tax rate since 2000. We are proposing that to keep it at 17.3 and 2.418 going forward. This next one's interesting. We're no longer the #1 less expensive school system by category. Clayton County has changed that. My understanding, Clayton County had a really low fund balance a couple years ago when the new superintendent came aboard, and he made it his effort to raise the millage, to raise the fund balance. So they've been doing a lot of cost cutting at Clayton County the last couple of years to raise that fund balance. School food services, as you can see here, in 20, they were supposed to end the year with less revenue than expenditures. It was not, that didn't happen that way. They actually ended very close to neutral. So they kept their fund balance going forward to about 2.4. You can see they were estimating they're going to, end of this year, they're going to be spending about 2.8 million, or losing about $2.8 million. And that's because we kept everybody fully employed the last quarter of this year. We did not let anybody go with school nutrition. We paid them out. That's going to show us an ending fund balance of about negative 445,000. If you see at the top, you'll see the transfer coming in at $1.4 million. That should bring them back up to about a $900,000. The reason we put 1.4 in there, because their cash levels are so low and because they spend so much money in July and August to get ready for school, they have to have almost $1 million or more, and they won't have that in the bank when they open up. Now, hopefully they won't need all $1.4 million when they open school up, but if they do, that money is available for them.
So we were feeding students, but we were not selling lunches during that.
And the reimbursement rate was not there like it usually is. The reimbursement rate was a lower rate because it wasn't officially a lunch. Debt service, good news there is debt service is still positive. We're still going to bring in a net increase of about $4.7 million. The balance in there stays healthy. Last year it was about $10 million. Then of course we issued the bonds, so it's going to go down a little bit next year with payments involved in that. But the other good news is that the June collections for SPLOST based on May activity was actually 5% higher than the previous year. So we're not seeing any decrease in our SPLOST collection except for the month before that, for May, for the May collections for the month of April. And that was the only month we saw a decrease of 3%. And that is, in a nutshell, the initial budget presentation. In the books you have a detail for every instructional level by operation wise, and you also have the total printout that includes the salaries and benefits in comparison to the previous years. If you have any questions, please contact me. I'll be more than happy to sit down and go through it with you. Any questions?
Sound like we have any, doesn't sound like we have any questions at this point, but I'm sure we'll have some before, during the week, and obviously Larry is available for everybody that has any questions.
Answered a lot of questions over the last few months, and I think
No problem.
Right, I think if we haven't gone individually, we've gone two people have gone at a time and met with Larry to make sure that because it's been a very difficult budget year, obviously, so everyone has really been involved in this. It's not like we have no questions because we've had them answered along the way.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just recommend that we wait a couple minutes to see if anybody shows up for the budget hearing, and if not, then we can adjourn and go into executive session for personnel.
Okay, at this time, there is no one here. We will wait a few more minutes to see if someone shows up. Any other questions or discussion while we're waiting?
I just do want to really thank Larry because he has answered so many questions and phone calls and just spent so much time. And no matter what we've asked him, he's been so diligent about this, taking the time, day and night, weekends, and answering all of our questions. So Jeff, really want to thank you for all his time. He has been, I don't think you sleep. So thank you so much for all your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. I think we did have the millage rate plan right after this. We want to go ahead and knock that out first.
It's not scheduled till 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So we have to wait. And
Okay.
open the meeting at 9 o'clock. It's totally separate meeting. So we will go into executive session. Since there is no one here, do we have a motion to go into executive session for personnel for our affidavit? Should we close the public hearing?
We need to close the public hearing first.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Kristen and a second from Tom. All in favor? It is closed. Unanimous. Now do we have a motion to go into executive session for personnel?
Second.
We have a motion from Darla and a second from Tom. All in favor? Unanimous. Motion passed. It is July 14th at 9 o'clock, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone, and please stand for the pledge. Salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have before you a recommended agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
I would recommend that we add an executive session for personnel after the military hearing.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
A Motion from Kristen and a second from Darla. All in favor? Unanimous. Motion passes. At this time, do we have a motion to open the public hearing for the millage rate?
So moved.
Motion from Tom and a second from Kristen. All in favor? Unanimous. At this time, Larry Hamill, our finance director, will give us a presentation on the millage rate.
Yes, good morning. So this morning, we're going to talk about under the Taxpayers Right Act that was back 4 or 5 years ago. What we have to show is the rollback number for the millage rate based on reassessment of property tax. So currently the millage rate is 17.3 and the debt service is 2.418. Based on the reassessments that the tax commissioner's office had figured out on a form called 32-1, they predicted that the rollback rate would need to be 16.995 for M&O and 72.376 for debt service. This means that if we were to make any reassessment neutral to anybody's house, we'd have to roll back this much and make sure they would not have an increase in their taxes. The tax history right now shows going forward from 2015 to 2020 tax digest year. We started back in 2015 with a 18.88. As you can see, 5.9, 8.91, 9.86, 8.63. This current year of 4.42. The computation form is this form right here for the M&O portion. This is the 32-1 computation. You can see the reassessment amount they used is a $231,386,143. And based on that tax rate, based on the tax digest, they calculate the equivalent millage of reassessment value added of 0.3.05, which is the 16.995, which means tax digest would have to decrease by 1.79%. And so therefore, currently the tax digest millage rate we are recommending is to stay at the 17.3 for the M&O and the 2.48 for the debt service. And that is it.
Do you have any questions or comments?
So we want to recommend, sir? Okay. We would like to recommend the board that we keep the current millage rate at 17.3 and the debt service at 2.418 for the current fiscal year of 21.
We will keep the meeting open for probably at least 10 minutes, anticipating we could actually have someone from the public come that would like to speak. So at this time, we'll just be waiting unless there's any more discussion.
It makes sense to keep the rate the same, given our large deficit in the state of 20, how much, 20 million are we short this year from the state, Larry? 7 million. And also that concept of the rollback makes the assumption that you don't have any growth, and our system tends to grow 15 to 1,800 students. So
His austerity cut was about $25 million.
we have a $25 million deficit. Exactly, grow.
Well, I think the other thing to note also is that the first 5 mills collected goes back to the state for the Equalization Act and for to share mills for the state education. Is that not correct?
Correct. And we took a big hit on local fair share. Tax digest from 2018, the tax ratio digest came out, and there was about a $4 billion increase from one year to the next. So that caused our local fair share to go up almost $7 million in 1 year. That's why we weren't really getting any funds for QBE, because the local fair share went up so much this year.
That's $69 million.
Yeah, $69 million is the initial calculation. Of course, with everything that happened with COVID-19, there's something called the 80-20 rule. And when that kicked in, our local fair share had to drop a little bit because the local fair share couldn't be more than 20% of the total QBE budget. So they had to drop it.
So you're saying that even though we had a growth in students, therefore we would get more funds from the state because we had an increase in students, the amount of money we had to give back in our local fair share.
Offset that.
So
Yep.
essentially, we grew in students, but we did not receive more funds from the state.
Right. So if nothing had, COVID-19 hadn't happened and we had been going along normally like we normally would, our actual QBE would have been about $1 million to $500,000 less this year than it was last year, just because of the increase in local fair share, even with growth.
Our millage rate
Any other questions or concerns?
Okay, I'd just like to formally recommend we approve the tentative millage rate as presented.
We actually, instead of the public hearing, we will not be approving, we have a meeting at 9:30.
Oh,
so
I
that's-
apologize. We'll do that at 9:30. That's correct. Got ahead of myself.
Everything's changed this year, so
Yes.
obviously they've gotten very confusing for us to be
Right,
having an 8:30, a 9, and 9:30, and a
Right.
6 o'clock meeting today, so I appreciate that, Dr. Beard. But at this time, do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Second. We have a motion from Tom and a second from Kristen, all in favor? Unanimous. Now do we have a motion to go into executive session for personnel for our affidavit? So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Darrell and a second from Tom, all in favor? Unanimous.